There you go. Hold for 2 seconds. It doesn't say what happened. Hold for 2 seconds. Maybe roll out. So, I know I've always commanded a lot of your attention. So, I'm supposed to, what does it say in the program? I'm supposed to welcome you. Now, can people hear me without the mic? Is that okay?
Kind of.
Kind of? Turn the mic back on? Can people hear me now? That's pretty loud. Okay, so in news, there's, sorry, Laura's just lost. Don't tell her I said that. There's a book in the back somewhere that like you can like write things down that you can either sign your name or not, so you can say anything. Okay, so it's important to have multiple models and to consider all models equally and without bias. Right? I hope that you all learned that. And so I came up with 2 models for why we're here. One is, and I wrote this down because there's a lot of adjectives. I was an impeccable, incredible, amazing, awe-inspiring advisor, and you're all so grateful to me for making your lives great. Okay. You're welcome. The second model is that each liked each other and wanted to see each other, and this was a convenient excuse. Actually, well?
And now I can't eat the salad, so...
You wanted to get out of there. Right, well, it's actually, I just thought of another model, and that is that maybe I was the worst, most despicable, horrible advisor. No one wanted to come back and tell me that or demonstrate that. Yeah, and then especially, and so that was last night was just a setup when people were nice to me, and today's the day when the mic really drops or something. Okay, so anyway, I guess we'll see over the day which of those models holds. Okay, so the student-advisor relationship and parent-child relationship evolve over time, and at this point, for the students and postdocs, I think you guys have gotten enough advice from me, so I want to flip this, and or you can consider it payback if you want to. And so I want advice in 2 things, and this is actually, and these are serious. It appears that I'm going to be 60 years old soon, knock on wood, and I'm pretty pleased with how things have gone for the first 60. The question is, what's next? And so I'd like advice from you guys, whether you write it in this book, tell me, email it. What should happen over the next 10 years? What's your advice for what I should be doing and how I should be doing it? So, all right, so that's number 1. Right? So it's a little bit of, again, you can consider it advice, payback, whatever you want to call it. And then the second is that, in case you hadn't heard, I have to write this inaugural article, if I can pronounce it, in PNAS, and so and it's pretty open what I can write. So an idea I had was to ask all of you to be co-authors on it, and to write something that would be more about what science is like and how to do science and the culture of science, rather than choosing one of your work, which would be my favorite, and then the rest of you would be angry and all that. It would be really ugly. No, but yeah. So I think that it makes sense, since I think what we've done has been different over the years to try to maybe break a mold out of that. So again, have ideas about that or thoughts about that? Please let me know, and you'll probably get another email. This time, not from Ida and Suzanne. Okay, so I also reflected a bit on what sort of we've accomplished together, and of course, one's one's original mentors are your parents, and I thought of sort of sort of a lesson from each of my parents that I think have permeated how I've sort of conducted myself over this time. Maybe more anyway. And my father's pretty simple, but I think pretty basic good advice, which was always do your best and be the best at whatever you do. And I think that's pretty good, lasting advice. My mother was a little more complicated, and she didn't really give advice other than sort of, you could see, and she would say anything she was thinking, which is probably the worst curse a teenager can have in a parent. But what she had, which I think was sort of redeeming, if you will, in that, is that it was a strong moral compass. And so she didn't just like say, don't do the wrong thing, but when there was something, when there was a wrong, or when there was an opportunity to do good, she would always speak up. And and I guess a way to say that is, if there's a chance of doing something good, then of course you should do it. And I think that's, and I guess I reflected on this because I got yesterday a email from Colleen Murphy, whom many of you know, who was a student in Jim Sputich's lab, who in the department, and I'll paraphrase what she said. She said, you didn't need to reach out to help me. I was a student in another lab, but you did. And so I think that's, I guess, what I think has typified this group of people is a sense of not doing things because it's, this is what's in it for me, this is what I'm going to do, but doing the right thing and actively doing the right thing. And when there's an opportunity to make a difference, to reach out and try to make that difference. And I think that also comes from what I saw my graduate advisor, Bill Jenks, do, which was believe in people. And I think now it's sort of described in Carol Dweck as a growth mindset that you can learn to do things. And Bill Jenks would just take anyone into his lab and believe that they could become a scientist, a chemist. He had a dentist who turned into a real scientist, and had a 40-year career at University of North Carolina. And what it takes is giving people thoughtful and honest advice and feedback along the way, and believing that they can learn and grow from their own efforts and from that feedback. So I want to read, don't worry, there's not much more. I want to, in that line, read a quote from Rebecca Solnit, who, if you haven't heard of her, you should read her essays. She's a really remarkable essayist, political commentator. And this book is called Hope in the Dark, which is sort of written during the Bush Jr. era and then reissued in more modern times. And I think a lot of what she says and a lot of what's said in the arts more broadly is really applicable to science and how we do, or at least should do, science. And she writes, hope is located in the premises that we don't know what will happen, and that in the spaciousness of uncertainty is room to act. When you recognize uncertainty, you recognize that you may be able to influence the outcomes, you alone or you in concert with a few dozen or several million others. Hope is an embrace of the unknown and the unknowable, an alternative to the certainty of both optimists and pessimists. Optimists think it will all be fine without our involvement. Pessimists take the opposite position. Both excuse themselves from acting. It's the belief that what we do matters, even though how and when it may matter, who and what it may impact, are not things we can know beforehand. We may not, in fact, know them afterward either, but they may matter all the same, and history is full of people whose influence was the most powerful after they were gone. I'm not planning on going anywhere, so that part's not like that, but you know, who knows. Anyway, I think it's really remarkable because, and I think it typifies really what science is about. You do things both in terms of education and training, and in terms of what you're doing in the lab with the hope that there'll be something profound that comes from it, something interesting, some insights. If you're an optimist, you just go in and do things and you don't have to think about it. If you're a pessimist, why bother? But again, in the space in between is hope that somehow through your intellect, perseverance, and the help of those around you, you'll uncover something profound, meaningful, and beautiful. And I think that's what this group has done and is doing. And I've had the great fortune to somehow be around all of you, and I've been awed and at times overwhelmed by your humanity, grace, thoughtfulness, and the caring that you've brought to this community and the community around you. So I guess if I'm allowed one more piece of advice, it's continue to act with that caring and grace that you've all exhibited. And finally, a warning. I believe that last night I get the last word. So be careful what you say.
So our first speaker is Florian Herschlag, and he will tell us about enzyme evolution, I suppose. And just as a reminder, I was told my more important part of the job is to keep everyone on time. So I will stand up about 2-3 minutes before your time is up. So even though I'm small, it should be really obvious.
Pick it up. Florian, I'll hold her down.
Okay.